A very warm good evening to our esteemed speaker, Dr. Ajai Chowdhry, our Honorable Director, Dr. B.S. Murthy, respected faculty and staff members, and all the fellow mates who have joined us here today. I, Abhishek, on behalf of Extramural Lectures team, welcome you all to the EML lecture in the month of April. We EML team at IIT Hyderabad have always worked to bring decorated personalities from various domains on one platform to give us talk on the field of their expertise such as art, science, social work, psychology, etc. to inspire IITS fraternity. We're delightful to announce Dr. Ajay Chowdhry will be our guest speaker today. He's one of the 6 founding members of HCL. He has played a leading role in the establishment of the industry, serving on the government committees and founding the EPIC Foundation in 2021. He is also an active philanthropist and has mentored and invested in over 50 startups. He also received the Padma Bhushan by the Government of India in 2011, which is the third highest civilian award, recognizing his consistent contribution in the IT industry. So without any delay, I request our Honorable Director, Dr. Ajay Chowdhry, FIC, Dean, to begin the event by lighting the diya.
Yeah, I think that's important. It'd be nice to read more informed, and that everybody can
Arrange the chairs.
Yeah.
Dr. Ajay Chowdhry was a member of the National Manufacturing Competitiveness Council, which is an apex body providing advisory inputs for shaping government policy. He was the chairman of the IIIT Raipur. He was chairman of CII, National Committee on Technology. He was also the panelist at the USC Forum on Globalization and Innovation. He also served as the chairman of FICCI Startup Committee. As an investor, he's on board of the Indian Angel Network and has invested in several startups. He was ranked third in the Power list of 75 most powerful brand builders of India. On behalf of the IIT Hyderabad community, I would like to thank him for joining us today in an institution with many aspiring entrepreneurs. Now, I request our Honorable Director, sir, to welcome our speaker and speak a few words.
Friends, I don't want you to be between our speaker and all of you. It's an honor for IIT Hyderabad that a speaker of the eminence like Ajay ji is amongst us. When India had been struggling to create any hardware, that was the time in 75. I think dreamt something very big for the country and started HCL. So this is something I think at that time thinking that big uh, is something which is not common for anybody. So that tells you what a personality Ajay is. And this book, which he launched today, and he was talking about that particular book, and it talks about just aspire. He says, when you have aspirations, everything else is second. Everything will fall in place. And I think that is something which IIT Hyderabad also thinks. When we have aspirations, everything will fall in place. And you will be able to make a significant growth and demonstrate to the world that you are second to none. And that's how he demonstrated that, yes, India can do great things. And through HCL is a very strong demonstration. And now he's taking a very leading role in the whole semiconducting ecosystem that India is trying to set up. The ISM, for example, India Semiconductor Mission, and trying to lead that to see India is going to be one of the leading countries in the semiconductor manufacture. And we are looking forward to that, sir. A great day where we will see in a few years down the line that India starts, rubbing shoulders with the giants and then creating an ecosystem where we have great aspirations and demonstrate that aspirations, once you have, everything else can be done. Thank you very much, sir, for coming all the way, and we are all looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, without any further delay, I'd like to invite Ajay sir to the stage, who is going to talk on the topic, the technology, entrepreneurship, and the future.
Why don't all of you come a little ahead? Let's make it very informal and closer. So far, everybody is sitting. Come closer, come closer. Just sit here. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's on.
Yeah, maybe easier. Can you hear me? Great. So basically, it's always a pleasure to come back to IIT Hyderabad because, as you probably know, I was the founder chairman of the institute. And so when the institute was located in the ordnance factory, that's when I used to come here. And as I was talking to Professor Mukti on the way, that's the time when we dreamt of a different kind of IIT. And I'm so happy to see that what I dreamt of, Professor Murthy has taken forward many, many leaps ahead. And it's so nice to see a different kind of IIT. You know, you're all very fortunate to be in an IIT like Hyderabad because when we were starting IIT Hyderabad, a lot of people used to ask me, why is the government planning to start new IITs? And what's the need to start new IITs? And I think what I discovered when new IITs got set up was that the faculty was much younger. And this new kind of faculty, which was so much younger, had new ideas. And they were thinking differently. So I think what got created were new IITs with new thinking, a new way of teaching, new way of creating, course curriculum. When we started out IIT Hyderabad, one of the things that we included was this whole idea of entrepreneurship as a central part of the IIT. We said we must not just create students who are going to find jobs. We must create students who will create jobs. And I think IIT Hyderabad remains the only IIT that has a minor in entrepreneurship. And now I'm told that being taken to an MTech level. So I think it's fantastic that this IIT has done things differently from many other IITs in the country. Uh, and also those little practical courses that were started then, I believe they have been expanded dramatically now. You all have an opportunity to learn more about what should be, what you should be tomorrow. Okay. So, uh, what I'd like to share with you is not what I've just written in the book, but some thoughts that I have that I would definitely love to share with you. Uh, and what I call these as learnings from life. And these are some of the learnings from life which you will find uh, good to look at and follow. So, the first uh, point that I would like to talk about is how to live your own dreams. Okay, you should have a dream, and how do you live your dream? So, my father belonged to the Indian Administrative Service. He was an IAS governor and frequently got transferred from one place to another. So I lived in very small little places in Madhya Pradesh. There was one place called Shadow, which I've written about in my book, where there was not even a tap. So that's the kind of places that I lived in. But that taught me a lot because one learned how to live with very little. And in Jabalpur, I sort of studied in a, you know, school called Christ Church, and later I did my engineering in electronics and telecom from the Jabalpur Engineering College. And it was great fun doing engineering those days. It was not so much of a pressure cooker situation that you have today. You know, it was much easier. So I spent a lot of time watching movies. But to the Lord. Now, when he moved in 1970, and there were jobs available at that. Creating a startup was never heard of. So we were not even thinking of this. I just wanted to get a job. So I said, okay, let me think slightly differently. Let me not look for an engineering job. Can I look for a sales or marketing job? So I only applied for sales and marketing jobs all over the country. And I said, I would like to sell an engineering product, but be a sales and marketing person. So waited. Those days it was very tough to get a job. Suddenly I got a call for 3 interviews in Delhi city. And I went for that. And fortunately, I got all 3 jobs. Now, which job to choose? So I said, one job was from DCM Data Product. It was just starting out. It was the electronics business of a very large company called DCM. So I said, let me take that job. You know, in life, sometimes luck plays a huge role. And so DCM Data Products turned out to be the most important decision I ever took in life. Because that's where I met 5 others with whom I started HCM 3 years later. So it's very lucky that I chose to join DCM. The interesting part was that the challenge that we saw ahead of us was that the microprocessor was just making its appearance in the country. And we felt that why don't we create a computer around the microprocessor? Because nobody had done it in India. Very few people have done it anywhere in the world. And so we said, if we took a microprocessor, we could actually change the world. So that's all about dreaming. You know, you're always dreaming about doing something. And our dream was that let's create a computer out of a microprocessor. So I had this fantastic job in DCM, which was the fifth largest company. And like a crazy guy, 6 of us left and started HCL. Now, those days, as I said, money was very difficult to get. So all we had was we put together, somebody sold a car, somebody borrowed money, etc., and we put together 1.8 lakh, 1.8 lakh. And that was not good enough to start the business. So we started a little marketing company and we said, let's go and create more money from the little money that we had. And we did something interesting. The interesting thing that we did was this is where, business sense becomes very important as you create a startup. The business sense was that we went to a company called Televista, which was a very large electronics company in the country. They used to make televisions and a whole bunch of stuff. They were making calculators. So we went to them and said, we will market your calculators because we have the experience of doing it in DCM. And we'll do a much better job than what you can do on your own. So they got convinced and they gave us for those products a credit of 60 days. That is, if we got the product, we could pay them in 60 days. And we, as a sales organization, and we set up a fantastic sales organization. So we in a sales organization used to sell our product in 15 days from the time we used to buy. So can you imagine that we have 60 days of credit, 15 days we would collect money from the customer. So we had 45 days of extra money available. And that is what is called negative cash flow. You didn't need money to buy the next load. Okay. Many years later, uh, Michael Dell set up Dell Computers, and they used to tone down the fact that they were a negative cash flow company. We were doing it in 1975. So that's what really is all about. Things when you have that aspiration to do something, you find ways of creating. So we created money from having nothing. And then, of course, the other challenge those days was that there was, if you wanted to manufacture any product in India, you needed a license to manufacture. License was only available to big companies. So we didn't have a chance of getting anything. Suddenly, we discovered that UP government was sitting with a license. We went to them, formed a joint sector company with them, and created what was called Hindustan Computers Limited. So, zero resources, no money, no license, no nothing, but we created a computer company. So, 1.86 lakhs then. Today, HCL is a $10 billion company. Okay. We have 200,000 stories that I'm trying to talk about in my book is why I call it just aspire. The whole idea is that if you aspire, everything falls in place. And later on, when I went to Michigan and I was studying under the great Dr. C.K. Prelad, he propounded this theory of A is greater than R. And he said, if you have the aspiration, resources will happen. But fortunately, I've proven it myself before. So I knew that if you have the aspiration, resources will happen. But this A is greater than R is something I've taught for years to all the startups that I have worked with. Many startups. I used to teach entrepreneurship here for the first 7 years when the course was started. And it was introduction to entrepreneurship. And I always used to talk about A is greater than R. So remember that. Because when you go out into after you graduate and you're looking to start something of your own, don't worry about what you don't have. Worry about what you have. And what you have is aspiration. If you have the aspiration, you will definitely succeed. Now, the second learning that I would definitely like to talk about is to remain very focused on what you want to achieve. So one of the things that I was very focused on for the last 30, 40 years is that I always had this strong belief that you need to create a very large electronics industry in this country. Okay. And I have been part of many government committees and I've given reports and all the complete government's electronics policies based on a report that I wrote with some of my friends. We all worked together in creating that. And those days we wrote one line which said, if we don't do electronics manufacturing in this country, someday the electronics import bill will be higher than the oil bill. And it's happening today. You tell me which product does not have electronics. You tell me which product does not have semiconductors. It doesn't happen. Your automobile is full of electronics. If you look at a new automobiles which are electric vehicles, 70% of an electric vehicle is electronics. That kind of passion that I had and that kind of focus that I had on creating the electronics industry has stayed with me since then. And so, 5 years ago, we saw the government take very strong decisions on making electronics happen in India. But my dream is very far away as yet. I still want to see India in a very different class in electronics. Today, we just manufacture electronic products in India. We don't design them. We need to design and make in India. And that would be the real make in India. So that's what I'm after now. I'm going after the government to create, make India as a hardware product nation. I wrote a paper on this, which I have socialized with many departments of the government. I've personally gone to them and told the minister, if you don't do this, it's a waste of time setting up semiconductor plants. Because if you set up a semiconductor plant, who will be the customer? The customer has to be an Indian brand or an Indian product. It cannot be cart before the horse. You know. So that part is something that I am after. So this focus of 30 years of working on making electronics happen is very important to me, and that's what I believe is what pays at the end of the day. So if you stay focused on what you want to achieve, and that achievement happens. And today, I think with India Semiconductor Mission being formed, I'm also seeing the next part of electronics happen in this country, that we will actually make semiconductors. You know, 15 years ago, when I wrote in my report that we should have at least two semiconductor fabs in India, everybody used to laugh. Indians in America used to say, you should be a fabless country, design the product, anything in India. Look what happened 2 years ago during COVID. The whole world ran short of semiconductors. India's many industries, 253 industries in India got affected because semiconductors were not available. So, as a large country, we cannot afford a situation where you do not have a semiconductor. It's very. So, I think this is something that I've stayed focused on, and I believe that focus always helps. So last year, when I was sitting around with some of my colleagues and friends, I started thinking, why is it that Indian brands have gone away in electronics? You notice it? There were so many electronic brands when we started HCL. Today, there are a handful. None of them exist. What happened? China has literally come and taken away that whole space. So in a manner, and I told this to a newspaper when they put it in blogs in one of the articles they wrote, India has become a colony of China. I wanted to wake up the government and make them think that this is not a good situation for us. China is nibbling away at our borders, and we are allowing them to come into India, make hay, and do nothing about it. Most of you may not know that the phone business in India is totally dominated by the Chinese. Okay, lots of Chinese brands. When they make the product in India, they hardly add any value. Their total value addition in India is between 4 to 8%. They also run the distribution companies in India. The distribution companies of Chinese brands are run by Chinese, not by Indians. trying to do in the country. It's becoming pretty much like what happened all those years ago when the East India Company came as to do business with India and to go over India. So it's a very dangerous situation to be in. So something that I started a foundation last year called Epic Foundation. And the whole objective of this foundation is to help recreate Indian brands, make a difference in terms of design and manufacturing in India. So we worked on two projects and we funded from the foundation. One project was to create a tablet in India which is repairable and upgradable. So today, if you take a phone or a tablet, you can't even open it. So if the battery goes bad, throw the product. Now that's a very Western way of looking at life. Buy and throw. That's not India. India, we don't even throw a toothbrush, right? You use it for something else also. So we decided that let's make a product which is repairable and upgradable. So we've actually introduced a tablet which can be now used for 5 to 6 years and you don't need to unnecessarily create e-waste. The second intervention we made was to design a chip. If you look at a LED bulb that we make in India, we are the largest manufacturer of LED bulbs in the world. So that's close to 800 million bulbs that we make of 12 watts. So I was talking to one of the bulb manufacturers and they said during COVID, they said, look, there is one supplier from China and all of us are dependent on getting this driver chip from this Chinese company. And they increased their prices 3 times during COVID because we were totally dependent on them. So we went and told them, if you guys, all manufacturers get together and decide to buy, I will make that chip in India. So they all agreed. They gave us a letter to say, if you give us the same chip at the same price and the same specification, we'll buy from India. So now that chip is being designed by a startup in Bangalore. And we will be getting the wafers from Taiwan because India at the moment doesn't have a fab. And at the end of this year, a new packaging company is being set up by a company from Noida, which is called Sahasra Semiconductor. They will do the packaging. And at the end of the day, next year, we will produce India's first chip in a large volume. So this is really the kind of intervention that we are making from my foundation. So all I want to leave you with is one thought: focus space. You know, remain focused. The other thing that I have a very strong belief in is that, and this is something that fortunately IIT Hyderabad teaches you to do. Okay, and what I call as you should be a rangist. Don't just know one area. Work on knowing many areas in life. Okay, so if you are a mechanical engineer, it's not necessary that you do not know anything about biology. It is not necessary that you don't know anything about literature or music or the arts. And I think this is something that IIT Hyderabad has encouraged from literally day one, that you should look at multiple areas to learn. And I think this is what makes for a good human being. So when I came to IIT Hyderabad and I went and talked to other IITs, not a single student in all other IITs ever used to attend a humanities class. And IIT Hyderabad changed that by creating many areas which you could actually learn. So work on knowing more things than yourself. And reading, learning, and doing new things, and adding that to your whole range that you know is better. At one time, my own professor wrote a book called Core Competency. Core competency means you did one thing and one thing really well. Those days have changed today. There are books that are now available, and lots of people are talking about that you have to have knowledge of multiple areas. And that's what makes you a full human being. Okay? Well-rounded human being. So that is what I think you should do, and that's what I've been doing in my life. I have so many interests. Like I'm a complete space freak. From my college days, I used to write to NASA, and those days, all that you had was letters that you could write. So I used to handwrite letters to NASA and say, I'm very interested in knowing about your next project. I want to get pictures for all your spaceships. And they used to send me huge posters, and my whole room was full of posters of NASA. Till date, I'm very interested in space. So we invested in a space startup in Hyderabad called Dhruva Space. Dhruva Space, 3 months ago, launched 2 satellites. Right. So this is the kind of interest that you should have in life. Don't just look at mechanical engineering or civil engineering. Have more interest in life because that makes life more interesting. Okay, and that's what is good for you. When I retired 12 years ago, I used to sometimes sing a little bit. I decided I'm going to learn how to sing well. So I hired a teacher and I started learning how to sing. And today I'm part of a group where we sing every Sunday on Zoom. It makes my life complete. It's so interesting, you know. So that's really what I say being, having a range that is very important. So I think these are some of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about. The area that is of great interest to me also is future. What is going to happen in the future? How will the future unfold for us? And I talk about my book. I met a very interesting person whose name is Ray Kurzweil, and he's a futurologist. And he has predicted that many changes will happen in the next 15 to 20 years. One of the most interesting changes that is going to happen is he talks about it as singularity. And in singularity, fundamentally, what he says is that singularity will happen in 2047, is what he's predicted. And what is singularity? Singularity is when computers will overtake the brain. Okay? And it's likely to happen. He predicted it will happen in 2047. Now, I think it's probably going to happen faster. Chat GPT has just happened. And in 3 months of Chat 3, Chat 4 has appeared. So I think as a result of all of this, the future looks very different. Okay. And we may have singularity happening 20 years earlier than what was originally imagined. Okay. So these are the kind of things that interest me, and that those are the kind of things that you should try and look at doing and thinking about. That you should look at where is technology going to go. And till yesterday, we used to think of microprocessors the way they were flat. Now you're having 3D microprocessors. So everything is around us is going to be so different as we go forward. And that's something that you should be focusing and learning more and more about. Read a lot, understand what others are doing, what other countries are doing, what other people are doing, and learn to be part of projects which are so different. I think one of the most interesting things that I was discussing with Professor Murthy is that you have a multidisciplinary activity going on very strongly in this institute. That will be very critical. And that's what will make you to do projects which are more interesting than what you would have otherwise done. Till yesterday you were just doing mechanical engineering products, projects, etc., etc. Now, if you want to do biology and mechanical engineering and electrical engineering and a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do together, it will make life much more interesting. So I think that's what it's all about. And things are going to be so much more interesting as you guys are going to see. And you know, there's been a lot of discussion for many years around disease. Now, how will disease be conquered in the future is going to be also very interesting. Many years ago, there was a futurologist who wrote this book about submarine entering the body and going through the bloodstream. That was a fiction, right? Now, so many experiments are going on all over the world with what are called nanobots. Nanobots will enter your bloodstream and they will going to fix a disease that you have. So somewhere in next 10 years or years, you will find that every disease can be conquered. Amazing. So the future is so much interesting, so interesting, and I find that so wonderful to read about and learn what is going to happen in the future. Now, what I want to now is that uh, read a few pieces from my book for you. Okay, just some little excerpts. And the whole idea of reading those pieces is to tell you what you will find very interesting to learn. This book is written only for one purpose, and that is that how aspiration can make things happen for anybody in the world. It could happen for startups, it could happen for people who are actually running businesses, existing businesses. It can happen for researchers, it can happen for anybody. Now, let me read from a chapter number 14, which is called, uh, which is exactly what I just described to you of having a range. And that is what this is all about. This spheres of being, I call it. And in spheres of being, I say successful CEOs tend to have interest outside of it. Okay, and that's really what I was saying. Empirical evidence supports the theory that wide-ranging hobbies improve mental agility, prevent burnout, and enable lateral thinking. Okay, that said, it is difficult to make time for one's enthusiasms while running an organization. So you have to find the time to do it. So this is really what I talk about in this, and how I learned how to sing, and I learned how to get deeper into music. All of that is in this particular chapter. Now, I'll just take you to another chapter which I call Windows to the World. Well, this is all about time when, as a company, we were just a 3 crore company, 1980. We decided that we wanted to set up a global subsidiary. And we decided that we make computers in India, let's go and make computers in Singapore. So 3 of us just landed up as men on the moon and decided to manufacture computers there. When we went to Singapore, people used to think that an Indian is that corner shop boy. They never used to acknowledge that Indians were in any manner better than them. The software revolution had not happened. Globally, people had not understood what Indians are capable of doing. So they used to ignore us. And then when we set up there and we launched the company, things started changing. And that's how we established our first uh, business there. But then we started to go to China. And in China, I acquired a new name for myself. I was called Chowdhury. They could never pronounce it. So I changed my name and I called it Chowdhury. And I printed my cards in Chinese, in Mandarin. And I would go there and produce this card. They were damn sure that they were meeting somebody who had a Chinese name. Okay. So that's how you adopt to a particular country, right? Like, for example, a lot of Indians, when they go to America, they adopt first names, Peter, John, this, that. Why do they do that? We always laugh at them, this fellow's changed his name. There's nothing wrong with it because you're trying to adjust to the environment there. And it's easier for an American to say John than to say Abhilankana, you know. So much easier. So that's what happened here. Now, uh, I'll just talk about some of the challenges of China, and that makes very interesting reading here. Board and lodging were the least of my problems. I was mystified and unsettled by the Chinese methods of negotiation. As one of the first Indian business persons to venture into mainland China, I found that tactics unfathomable. We were constantly kept off balance, and I never knew where we stood. In later decades, Chinese style negotiations and business culture would become the subject of academic research in numerous books. I learned it the hard way. Typically, the meetings were held in a staff conference room, featureless except for blackboard and a long table with ergonomically challenged chairs. Very difficult to sit. In the winters, physical discomfort was magnified because there was no heating, even when the mercury fell to 20 degrees below zero. To make matters worse, there was no glass in the windows, and our multiple layers of clothing were ineffective against the chill wind blowing through the room. So that's the atmosphere that we were operating in. And so negotiation starts. And I've described the negotiation. I'll make it short by not reading everything. But then 10 people were sitting across the table, two of us sitting this way. And these 10 people will then, we are presenting our proposal and they said, okay. They go to the board and write a product price and say, this is the price we want. So we both tell them that, look, this is too low, the price. They all get up and go away. No discussion. That's their way of negotiation. We learn the hard way. So then we are waiting till the evening and suddenly we get a call, please come tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We go there. After a little bit of discussion, they again go upon the board and put another price, which is slightly higher than the last. We tell them, sorry, this is too low. They again get up and go. This coding carries on for 3 days. You know what their strategy was? The strategy was they knew when our flight was. So the flight was on the fourth day. So just 4 hours before that flight, they bring a price for us and say, this is what we want. And you know, you're first supposed to take that decision on the spot, still negotiate and haggle a little bit and come there. But they knew that 4 hours later we would be going away and there's no chance of getting another flight or another hotel in back Beijing. So next time we became smarter. We used to book 2 hotel rooms in different hotels. And so you could negotiate. So this is what it's all about. You learn so much about, this is what I've written about. So you can find this whole book is full of anecdotes. It is full of experiences about various things that I have done. And there are two very important chapters here. One is around entrepreneurship. And I describe everything from how you start to how you can grow, how you can learn, what you can do, what you should do, and what you should not do. So it's totally about entrepreneurship end to end. It's like a primer on entrepreneurship. But it is about each and every point that you must learn to be a good entrepreneur. Like one of the anecdotes I talk about is when people start a new startup, 5 people get together, they start a startup. And when they start a startup, everybody is called a director. Correct. Somebody is called a CEO, they are all of them are called directors. So I tell a story which makes it very interesting. I talk about this man who's climbing up the hill, and as he climbs up the hill, he's forgotten to bring water. So he finds a house on the way and he goes and knocks on the gate. And suddenly a dog comes barking and he just gets very scared. But then the owner comes, takes the dog away, and he gets some water and he's on his way up the hill. On the way back, he again comes to the same place and he still doesn't have water. So he goes and he goes to the gate. The dog does not come. So he's wondering what happened to this dog. He was so aggressive on the way up. So anyway, he opens the gate, goes to the door, and knocks on the door. No barking, no nothing, nothing is happening. So then the owner comes out and he says, sorry, even now I don't have some water. Can you please give me water? So he has his water. Then he asks the owner, he says, you had a fantastic dog last time. He used to bark like hell. And what happened to him? He says, after you went away last time, I changed his name and I called him director. From the day he became director, he just sits on the chair and doesn't. So there's a lesson for startups. Don't get carried away by designations. Right? So these are the kind of things that you'll find very interesting in the book about how you should not get carried away with what you don't have. You know, you should have what you should have. So one of the most important life skills that I talk about in this book is a chapter which is called salesmanship. Now, this chapter is called chapter number 12, salesmanship or the art of living. Right? Why do I call it art of living? I think it's something that literally every human being in this room should know how to sell. So if you want to do a startup or you want to run a company, and if you are a CEO, you don't know how to sell, there's no way you'll be successful. So a lot of people worry that, salesmanship is something that you're inherently born with. That's not true. Salesmanship can be learned. It's a science, it's not an art. So there's a process to selling. So if you learn the process of selling, you can be extremely successful. What happens when you're living in your home also? Okay? You go to your parents and you're angling for getting some money for buying something. What do you have to do at that time? You have to sell yourself. Right? So each and every part of transactions that you do in life are all about selling. So this is a life skill that literally everybody must know. So this chapter tells you a lot of things about how to sell, what to sell, and what strategies to use to sell. Like I talk about one particular incident where we had a huge deal happening in HCL in Bombay. And in that deal, we were discussing the strategy till about 12 o'clock at night. And my team said, sir, this order to aayega hi nahi. There's no question of getting this business. So we were very late in the night. So I said, okay, let's do one thing. Let's increase the price. They were all very shocked. They said, if we increase the price, we'll definitely lose this product. I said, no. It shows confidence that your product is better than your competitors. So next day we increased the price and we got the deal. So this is all about how to learn these kind of skills which are very, very important in life. And salesmanship is a life skill that I absolutely believe that literally everybody should have. So this book has many such interesting areas which I talk about, which is what would make life very different and life very interesting. And as I said, it's all about creating things. Now, I talk about how we created different markets. When you actually create a market for any product, you become the leader. So in 1976, when we started computers, there were only 100 computers in India. And when we went to customers, they had never seen a computer in their life. They didn't know what computers could do. So we had to start from scratch to tell what is the benefit of a computer. So we used to teach our salespeople, we used to give them something called an ROI calculator, return on investment calculator. And they would go to a customer and say, if you buy this computer for so many lakhs, it will get returned, this money will get returned to you in 24 months or 18 months because of the savings you'll make from buying the computer. Okay, so that's how you gave the benefits of buying the computer to people. And that's how we became successful. And let me tell you, six of us started HCL in 1976. In 1986, we were the top Indian IT company. 10 years. This is what this book will teach you. Would love for you to buy this book, learn more, create more, become an entrepreneur. I think if all of you became entrepreneurs sitting in this room, I would be thrilled. Because that's what it's all about. Because, you know, there are today programs being run in certain parts of the world where scientists are being taught how to be entrepreneurs. Scientists create great inventions, but they don't know how to create a business from it. So in England, I met this Indian girl who came to meet me 4 weeks ago, and she said, "We've created a program to teach scientists how to be businessmen and create businesses of their own." So that's what it's all about. The world is going to be different. Uh, till yesterday, everybody had somebody worked in a company for 15 years and 20 years and 30 years. I don't think any of you are going to do that anymore because that's not the way the world is today. Lots of you will probably do different things at different times. And you may also not even work in an office, you'll probably work at home. COVID has taught us that. So all these changes are happening, and you need to be able to adopt to these changes and learn new tricks which you will be able to use in creating a business or working for an organization or creating something which nobody has done before. And that's what makes a student from IIT very well placed to create something. So my uh, message to all of you would be, think of creating things. You're engineers. Create things, make products. And yesterday, all engineering students used to go and join IT companies and become software coders. Guys, nobody needs coders anymore. ChatGPT has destroyed all that. So why would you want to be an IT software engineer anymore? Sorry, I'm also an IT company, but I'm talking against the IT company because I have a very strong belief that engineers must be engineers and they should create engineering products. And that's what should make you interested in doing things which you must do as engineers. So create products, create companies, create businesses around something that you create. Start very early in the institute itself. You have some great facilities here. And Professor Murthy was telling me about what was that TIP you were telling me about? Yeah. So you want some fantastic areas to go and experiment, create products, create your own businesses around products. And that is the world. India has to be a product nation. India cannot be a follower. We need to be the leader. And we need to create businesses around products. And who will do those products? Engineers. Right? So with that, I'd like to leave you with these kind of thoughts of doing something you've not done before and do something which you will be very proud of doing 10 years later, 15 years later. And stay focused. Okay?
Thank you very much, sir, for such an insightful talk. Now I'd like to open the floor for question and answers. Okay. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah. You mentioned that people should go about having a range of feeling, having an interest in multiple fields and knowing about them. But as the AI is taking it, AI, like the ChatGPT knows all the basic things what a person who's having a diverse interest will know. So whether people should focus on being a jack of all trades in the coming future or the master of one that is specializing in one thing.
You see, there are lots of thoughts on this. For many years, there has been this discussion and discourse that you should become a specialist and then a micro specialist and then a micro specialist. No. But those days are gone. Because Chat GPT itself is changing. Because if you don't know multiple subjects, Chat GPT will know more than you. So I think you need to be very clear that you need to know more things than what is your area of single interest that you like to be. And why that is important is that it makes you a full-rounded person. It is not somebody, when I was starting up in IIT Hyderabad, the first line I wrote for the director was, I don't want to see nerds out of this institute. Okay, and that's been proven right because you guys who are now learning in this institute are no longer just nerds. You're learning so many new things. I remember Abdul Kalam used to come and teach. Okay. I mean, a person like Abdul Kalam and coming and teaching at IIT Hyderabad was amazing. So I think that's really what I believe in.
Thanks. One quick question. Thank you so much again for gracing the occasion. How important was networking during that time? And if you could mention about your mentor and how important is a mentor for this generation to have, or ChatGPT can be a mentor, or what are your thoughts around mentorship and networking?
ChatGPT can never be a mentor. See, having a mentor is a very good situation because that way you get guided every part of the way when you create a business, for example. And I think that's something that you cannot replace. Networking is is not something that everybody is capable of doing. And it is just like salesman. You need to learn how to network. So initially, you'll go to a get together and you will stand in one corner with your drink in your hand and do nothing else. But then, if you take the effort to go and say hello to somebody and get to say hello to somebody else, go and say hello to somebody else, you get to know more people, it'll help you in whatever you're doing. Number one, you'll meet more interesting people and you'll learn about them. Number two, you'll be able to meet somebody who can give you business tomorrow. So networking is something you spend time and learn. It doesn't happen once. And it's a very important skill, just like sales. I used to be terrible. And then I discovered, sometimes what happens is when you don't learn how to network, you sort of come back home and say, oh, I should have said this. And it'll happen all the time to you. If you network, you'll never say that when you go home. That timing is very important. At that particular time, you met somebody, you said something which you should have said is important.
You to come here and inspire us. I have a few questions. Why did you want to go into sales or marketing? Did some event lead to make that decision, or did someone inspire you? That's the first question. Second is, how do we build a startup and avoid competition from big giants? They have a lot of money to burn and they can give us a tough time.
So, first thing, you're right. My brother inspired me. He came from sales and marketing. So when I used to sit around chatting with him, he would sometimes give me books on marketing and I would read them. And I got very interested. And so therefore, I always felt that that was a very good skill to have. So definitely he inspired me. Now coming to competition and coming to uh, uh, people who can actually burn a lot more money than you. Look, when we were selling HCL hardware, we were competing with the best in the world. Hewlett Packard, Dell, everybody. And we used to still beat the hell out. Why? How did we do it? One thing I've always believed in is that if you have more competition, you become more agile. Number two, competition expands the market. So if 10 companies are going and selling the same product that you make, the market keeps expanding. It's very good for you. 25 years of HCL, we had a function in our headquarters, and we called it competition is good. And we invited people to actually play two different instruments to show that one competing with the other makes it better. So competing is good. You need to find ways to compete. So when Hewlett Packard came into the country and we needed to compete with them, we created the largest service infrastructure in the country. There were 3,000 engineers serving customers. Hewlett Packard had no chance against us when large customers wanted product all over the world. It took them 10 years to set that up. By the time we were doing something different. So you always have to find a way to compete.
Someone request.
Yeah.
You said 12 years back when you retired, you wanted to improve singing. Could you sing over the lines?
Do you really want me to do that? Arey Baba. Well, I was very fond of Devanand in my old days. So probably I'll sing a Devanand song for you. One line. What I sang earlier. Okay, okay. I don't know whether any of you know Devanand. Okay, let me think. I think I'll sing the same song. चले गए हम बेखुदी में तुमको पुकारे चले गए हम देखा कि ये तुम्हें बन के दीवाना उतरा जो नशा सो हमने ये जाना सारे वो जिंदगी के सहारे चले गए. The learn this thing how to sing. It makes life more interesting. You know something? You go to a party, you know how to play a guitar or you sing, you become a star in that party. You'll discover that. So learn to do these things.
Thank you for having me.
Sure.
So whenever there is a company that has some product or some services they are giving in the market, how do they deal with the scalability of a company versus doing more the research and innovations in the product they are offering? So especially when you have very start age of your company, any product idea, we have dilemma, right? Should we go and then to start selling that product, or should we just work on getting that product better and better? So how do you deal with that dilemma?
Very interesting point and a very important point actually. I've always believed that what is very critical in the life of a company is time and timing. Time to it takes to for you to make the product. That is time to market and timing. When you launch the product, the timing has to be right. So let us say that it is Mahashivratri and you're launching something that it connects to Mahashivratri. If you don't launch it on the day of Mahashivratri, it's no use. So timing is important. Time to market is also important. Time to market, when people start making a product, they imagine that they will put everything in that product that they can think of. It's not necessary. Look at your competition, decide what specifications your product should have. As long as it has enough specifications better than your competitor, go ahead and launch it. And then start thinking of a concept I call temporary monopolies. Okay? You start looking at version 2, version 3, version 4 of that product ahead of time. So by the time competitors catch up with you, your version, you should be on version 2. When competitor catches up with your version 2, you should be on version 2. So at every time you have something which is unique. And differentiation is what makes businesses successful. Okay, thank you everybody.
So that will be the end of